The last video went over what we're going to be doing with the request library and now with the new BeautifulSoup library to extract data from an HTML page, from a web page. So this video is going to go over how to get up and running, how to make sure our request was successful, and then we're going to set up what's called the BeautifulSoup object, how we're going to pull the content of a web page. From there, we'll start to work with some of the functions that are built into the BeautifulSoup library. So we'll start by importing the two libraries that we're going to need, import requests, and then we're going to say from BS4 import BeautifulSoup, because we only need this one particular module. So this is kind of the standard way of getting the library, the BeautifulSoup library. So I'll run this. So now we have the libraries as part of our workspace. Next, this is a review from last week, but we're adding a little bit of an extra element here with our if-else statement based on the status code. This is a way of making sure that our result, making sure that we actually got a connection to the Epicurious webpage and printing out an informative response based on that status code. So I'm specifying the URL as the Epicurious site, and I'm right away adding in the search/apple pie for an example. I don't need to use the %20 here because the request library understands what the space means. I then use the get request to contact that URL, that particular address, and then all I'm going to do is figure out whether this was successful or not. So I get a success response, which is good. I've run this before, so I knew that would happen. I'm going to modify this program a little bit to make it more dynamic. And this is really for you to have an example to point to that can make this program a little bit more dynamic. So notice that instead of specifying the keywords directly in the URL, I'm going to set up a keywords variable and set it equal to an input. In the input, I'm writing a phrase that will tell the user what they need to do. And then the variable, keywords variable, is referenced here. We're adding it to the string that is the URL. And the rest of the code is the same. But you'll see that this is a little bit nicer because it allows us to input whatever keywords that we want to search for. And then I'm getting a clickable URL. The pie doesn't show up, but I'll fix that later. So that was just a review from last week with the additional component of more informative replies, more informative output after running our function. So we know already that it was successful. And just for fun, I printed the URL. Next, we're going to introduce the BeautifulSoup library. And I'm going to set up a variable called results page. I'm going to set it equal to BeautifulSoup response.content, and then I'm going to use a parser, which is part of the BeautifulSoup library, called the LXML. So that's how I'm going to build my data structure. So all this is doing is it's taking the response variable that I've already defined up here. I got the data from this request, and I'm making it into a data structure that's going to be more useful for us. So if I run this, and then notice I'm printing this results page using a property called prettify, which lets me, it just makes the output look a little bit cleaner. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, So I've set up my data structure based on the data that I got back from my request. And it looks a little bit better than it would. Even though we didn't print out our response.content, we could and just take a look at the difference between the two. So for an exercise, I'm going to have you build a similar program but referencing a different website. So what you'll need to do is write a program similar to this one, but substituting the different URL. And in the exercise, instead of adding ingredients for a recipe, this time we're going to add stock symbols. So for example, we could use AAPL for the stock for apple. And then I'll have you print out the results.